So you've spent over 20 years working with people, from pro athletes to everyday people, and trying to help us all feel better. What first really got you passionate about helping people optimize their lives?
There's kind of two stories that kind of go in the backstory. One is I had really bad back pain when I was in my early 20s, like when you shouldn't be having back pain. But I'm just stubborn. And so I just slept on the floor for like 3 months. And finally my mother said, you have to go to the doctor. So I go, and I didn't know any better. I went to a general practitioner. I sat in the office for 2.5 hours to go sit on the tissue paper for another hour to have somebody look at me like I would look at if you opened up the hood of my car and I know nothing about cars. And he just said, oh, it could be a slip disc, could be a pinched nerve, could be anything. I said, really? That's the best you have to offer me? So I, frustrated, I went and I just said, I'm just going to go to the gym. And I looked at every machine that said back, and I just did that. And I just by pure luck, it made my back feel better. And so I'm like, this is kind of cool. And so I had always worked out for playing sports and so forth. So I kind of got into it, and I said, if I'm going to invest this much time and I want to learn a little bit more about it. And that just kind of got my inquisitive mind going, and it just kept going. And then said, all right, there may be an opportunity to do something here, like as a career. And in the back of my mind, I also had another story. My grandmother, who ran a gift shop, had 4 significant knee surgeries, including 2 replacements. She was someone who was vital. She loved to dance. She loved to do all those things, but she was an incredible amount of pain, so much so at the end of her life, she had a morphine pump in her stomach. And it's like her life was completely side-railed by something that if I could have gotten to her when she was in her 40s, like get her some better mobility, get her a little bit stronger. Like she wasn't somebody that crashed on a black diamond ski run or got checked into the boards in the NHL. Like she ran a gift shop. Your knees shouldn't fail you to the point where you need morphine to get through your day. And so it's like, I want to save the next person to not have to have their life derailed like that.
Wow, that's incredible. So moving away from pain for both you and your grandmother were 2 really big motivators.
Yeah. And then obviously not liking sports, the performance side came into play. And then, the convenient thing is a lot of athletes get hurt. And so if you can marry those 2 things together, make them perform better, and then keep them on the field or on the court or the track, that was kind of the sweet spot for me.
That's awesome. And I love through your excellence in pursuing this that you were able to work with Navy SEALs and Olympians. And can you do any name dropping, some of the people you've worked with?
So probably the most significant is I spent 9 years with the New York Giants back when we were actually good and we won 2 Super Bowls. And so I worked with a couple NFL teams, but I worked with them hands-on as a consultant. I was there twice a week for all the time and got to work with all the players. And it was a very cool experience being part of a team and being able to see what high performance looks like at that level with some of the greatest athletes in the world.
What about baseball players? I saw you worked with some baseball players.
Yeah, I've worked with from high school all the way up to the MLB, and I've done testing at the MLB Combine, and so baseball is my own kind of personal passion. I still play to this day, in a 35-year and older hardball league, and try to survive every Sunday and stay youthful. But I'm not going down easy. I'm the guy that's still in bases, laying out for baseballs and legging out triples.
So you think that's because of the conditioning or the hard-headed New Jersey mentality that all 3 of us?
It's a little bit of both, but the latter certainly helps. But I am not the guy who's got the knee sleeves and pounding Advil and who needs a pinch runner. I just a lot of that is preparation, and I work towards that to make sure that I want to be able to do this, and not only be able to do it now, but my ultimate goal is I want to be able to play with my kids, which means I got to keep playing for another 10, 15 years until they're age eligible to play with me.
Wow.
So what do you think has changed in when are you still active with athletes, or have you moved on to helping others at this point?
I will still get some referrals, but I kind of pivoted for a few different reasons. One, from a business standpoint, athletes are very transient. Pro athletes don't stay pro very long. And so, from business model, having to constantly refill that tank is tough. And then at the younger side, I was kind of a little bit discouraged where youth sports has been professionalized by adults, and it was very discouraging to try to develop young athletes when they just never got a chance because they were being forced to compete year round, and they really never had a chance to develop. And so I didn't want to kind of be part of that model. And then there was also the realization that, like, okay, I kept having this client come to me and they were seeking me out, where they were somebody who was over 40, who still wanted to work out, was refusing to go to the rocking chair, but just didn't know what to do. And they were breaking down, and I was an answer for them. And then after seeing enough of these people come to me, I'm like, the universe is trying to tell me something. And then I was just too stubborn to look in the mirror and say, well, like, dummy, you're one of them. Like, you're the guy that your ideal client is. And so that's where I pivoted. That's where I kind of, started, putting more of my focus on finding people like myself who are looking at a lens of 40 and over a little bit differently than our parents and grandparents did.
So let's talk about and pivot on that. So we have an audience that definitely is all about being fit over 50. We all have battle wounds from years and years of life. I always say that, a life well lived is a life with some slight injuries for the most part here, if you don't challenge yourself. What do you take with somebody from, let's say, what do you do with a person who's out of shape? What do you do with a person who's in shape? Is there anything different you could do with somebody like that?
It's the same recipe. It's just where you plot them along the continuum. So regardless, if you came into me tomorrow and you're an MLB All-Star, or if you're a couch potato, who in their 50s, or if you're somewhere in between and an active, someone in your 30s, I'm doing the same intake. I need to know the same things about you. I need to know your past, what your medical history, injury history, training history, what you've been successful with, what has not worked. Then I need to know where you're at currently. And I can't make assumptions on that. So I don't guess, I test. And that's why I want to look at, what are your movement competencies? How well do you move? I want to look at, if you have performance goals, okay, where are we starting from, and getting some baseline performance testing that's within the framework of what you're capable of and what your goals are. And then I got to get a bigger picture of the other 23 hours of your day, which is just as important, if not more impactful, because I always give the conversation I always have, Mark, is about seeds and soil, right? I explain our training is just planting seeds, hopefully for a harvest down the road. Like, it would be great if we did a set of bicep curls and we had these beautiful arms that, we put the weights down. It doesn't work that way, right? You're putting in an investment for hopefully that'll pay off later. Well, with that, you need to plant them in soil that's going to be fertile enough for that to grow. Well, that soil is analogous to the what I call the big three. It's your sleep, it's your nutrition, and your stress management. And if those three are in line, I can give you the greatest workout in the world. It's going to be a useless piece of paper if I can't get those other three things to support it.
So what are the biggest mistakes somebody makes, let's say, in their 50s or even 60s at this point when they're working out?
So there's two types. There's one that underestimate themselves and they never push themselves to see their potential. And then the other ones are like, I played ball in college. I can just pick back up where I left off. And they overestimate themselves. Now, they're technically the more dangerous ones because they'll be the ones who hurt themselves going into the gym. But that could easily be corrected if you just have good programming. The ones who underestimate themselves don't see it because that's a little bit tougher because there's a mental framework there that they're not allowing themselves a different identity because of where they're at, and that's a little tougher to crack. I can rein in the over rambunctious guy with good programming. The other one I have to try to convince that you're not broken, and that's a tougher sell.